afraid with all the competition that it would be a real challenge, especially with the one with YouTube, because you guys didn't show up, that's where I was going to go. I'm curious, everybody is a current student, yes? You know your idea. What years are we talking? Seniors?
Juniors.
And juniors. Okay. And what? Okay, that's great, because I've got a little something for everybody. And no graduate students, or, okay, all right, postgraduate. So I just want to know who I'm talking to in the room. I thought this session would be really important because November really starts a period of time where internships are going to be posted for the summer. So for those of you all who are about to graduate, that may be your, just put my glasses on, I realize I can't see anybody. That's going to be your entree a lot of times into a potential job situation. For those of you all who are sophomores moving in, a lot of times companies tend to look at that junior to senior level opportunity, so you can sort of be lacing the road for yourself as you get ready to go. And then for those of you all who are sort of also sort of the junior or senior who might move into an intern situation, some things to think about in terms of how to leverage the opportunity into a job situation. So hopefully I will cover all that. This is sort of my speaking agenda, but I really want to encourage you. I have a very strong coaching mentality. We've got 45 minutes. It's not a tremendous amount of time. And I really want to answer any questions or deal with any concerns that you guys might have as they come up. So don't hesitate to stop me if there's something that may be unclear or something that triggers a question for you guys, because I really want to address what you want to know. Just to give you a little bit more background on me, a lot of my life has been inside HR, and even though I do diversity consulting, I sort of look at the life cycle of an employee in the work situation. I work primarily in the television and advertising industry. I'm sort of in the digital space now, because as you guys have heard today, digital seems to be king these days, and we all have to be really mindful of that. So some things I might talk about may be a little obvious for you guys who have been in the job market, who might have had some previous experiences, but I just want to make sure I cover a little bit of everything for everyone, so I'm not going to take for granted that you might know something, and I'll breeze through. And like I said, if you have any questions, jump in anytime, because I really want to make sure that this is your session and that I answer the questions that are important for you. Sound good? Okay, so let's talk about interviewing for the career you want. I don't want to take for granted, because as an HR person, I've seen a lot of people fall down even in this area. So I wanted to just kind of briefly breeze through some of the things that are important. For those of all you who had lunch with me today, we talked a lot about research and what that looks like. And I think what's really key for you when you're thinking about researching a company, a lot of people fall down because you feel like I need to prepare myself as a candidate going in there and make you like me. But what's really important for you guys as you're looking at where you're going to settle in when you get out of school is also, what is the culture of a company that's going to make me most successful? How do I work, and what are the things that I need to know? You really need to look at a company in terms of your research and try to get a sense of who they are culturally. Somebody had mentioned at lunch, one of the first questions they're often asked is, why do you want to come work here? And sometimes you can have sort of a deer to headlights situation, particularly when it's a company that's very large and it seems really obvious. But the answer can be a little bit more provocative if you've done your research. It can be tying into maybe a company's pro-social campaign. If there's something you've done for yourself, like on a volunteer level, and the company is very entrenched in the community in a very specific way, that might be something that's attractive to you. Like if you were in school, you did some volunteer projects with the community, and you're working for a company that does certain things in the community, that might resonate for you. That's a way for you to connect in a different way beyond just the obvious work skills. It may be researching the CEO of a company and finding out, I said this at lunch, that they spoke at a TED Talk, and maybe there was something that they said that was very inspiring to you that you thought, this is the person that I want to go and work for. So when you're doing research for a company, you're not just looking beyond the general statistics, you know, when they launched, if it's a digital company, how long they've been in business, but you're really looking at the full scope of what people are doing, what people are saying, some of the blogging that's taking place, so that you can really develop a very well-rounded response or preparation for yourself as you're going in for an interview. And I always say you want to prepare a 5-minute pitch. Now you're going to have yourself together in terms of your resume and all these things that are important, but you never know when you get the opportunity to speak to somebody at a different level, whether it's in the elevator, whether you're having an internship and a senior executive might be walking by and ask you a question or say how things are going, and you want to be able to say something beyond things are fine. I always say have at the ready maybe 3 things that you're trying to convey about yourself that might set you apart. It may be something like somebody will say, hey, how's it going? And you can say, we're having a really terrific time. My team with the internship is preparing a project that I really hope you'll come. I'm very excited about some of the research work we've been doing, and we're very excited to present it to the company. That little exchange can convey some passion, some excitement for the things you're doing, beyond just saying, I'm so passionate about being here, some of the typical buzzwords that you hear in a company situation. So you want to kind of prepare yourself for what your 5 minutes may look like. It may be, hey, I'm just meeting you, I see Brianna here, and I might say, tell me about yourself. You know, you're here, and what are you going to say in that 5 minutes? You might say the school that you're going to, what you're majoring in, and what you're most enjoying about your internship opportunity. But you kind of want to have something there that if somebody has a conversation with you, might spark a little interest, a little memory in a crowd of about 30 or 40 people that some companies can often take in during an internship period. So that's when that 5-minute pitch is going to be really important. And then also when you're going in for an interview, it's really important to stay in the moment. I can't tell you how many times I've interviewed people who just sort of space out on me and I don't know where they went, but they're not really paying attention to what I'm asking them or what they said. And somebody said to me once, very early in my career, stay where your feet are. And just really stay in the moment in terms of where you are. Really pay attention to what's being asked of you and, you know, what kinds of responses that you want to kind of put together. But don't try to presuppose what somebody's going to ask you. Really try to stay in the moment there. And then I say, really think about the types of questions you might want to ask for yourself when you're going into an interview. And this goes back to your preparation. You know, we talked a lot at lunch about not just asking questions like what are the salary, what are the vacation hours, that type of thing, but ask the questions that you need to know for yourself that's going to help you make an informed decision about where you want to work long term. That question could be around professional development. What type of professional development opportunities do you have within the company? Do you guys do something on site? Do you support or pay for continuing education? If I want to go back for an advanced degree, do you guys have any type of tuition reimbursement? How quickly do people move within the company? How often are people reviewed? These are all things that are going to be important to you and to how you work. You know, this isn't an autonomous situation. There are people who are more extroverted, recognized and received better than people who are introverted. Only you know who you are, and you need to ask the questions when you're interviewing that are going to help you glean that. Because remember, the interview is a two-way street. If you're interviewing a company the same way they're interviewing you to make sure that it's a good fit. So just keep that in mind. So when we think about maximizing your internship experience, there are certain things to kind of take a look at. Energy is the most important thing going. My God, I cannot tell you, when I come into a reception area to meet somebody for an interview, I'm looking at body language, I'm looking at how engaged you are, I'm looking at, are you bringing your A game to the table just on how you say hello. I cannot tell you how frustrating it is when you're meeting a low energy person at the start of your day, and I'm thinking to myself, I know my environment, I know how people work around here, I know how frenetic it is, and if you can't even bring your A game when you're saying hello, that's going to be a problem. So think about that, and think about what you need to do to bring your own energy and to keep energy flowing for you. particularly coming out of school where you might have been in a routine and you're used to a certain flow to your day. What do you have to do to keep that flow going? It may be sort of getting up, and if you're a runner, going for a run and then coming back and hitting your day. It may be sort of launching into like coffee first thing in the morning, whatever it takes for you to kind of bring your A game in terms of the energy. Focus is really important. Focusing on people, making eye contact, focusing on your mission in terms of when you're going in there, so make sure you keep that going. Like I said, research, preparation, and then follow-up. And how you follow up is going to be key. Don't take that for granted. A lot of times people will tell you in an interview what it takes to follow up with them afterwards. And they may say, hey, I'm interviewing a lot of people over the next couple of weeks, but I'll be back in touch with you like within 10 days to let you know where you stand. Don't call me, don't email me, I'll do this. You can, follow up with that person like on day 10 if you haven't heard back from them and just say, hey, am I still in the mix? What's going on? But really pay attention to the follow-up. If you've had a really great interview, we talked about this, you might want to shoot an email thanking them, but you might want to do the old-fashioned thing like write a handwritten note. Every once in a while when I would get a few of those, I was very surprised that you talked about it. It was so rare that you actually got an opportunity to do that. So let's talk about some quick basics before we get into the nuts and bolts of things. I don't want to take for granted what people know. Believe it or not, it's still important to say be courteous and thoughtful to people. I now watched a very senior executive come in for an interview and basically shoot the receptionist alive for something in terms of some miscommunication about getting up on the elevator and stuff like that. And interesting enough, we actually cared what the receptionist felt about the person because she's our front line that comes to the door. If you're coming in like an asshole and she tells us that, we're going to be mindful of that because we're not really trying to add that percentage of people to our population. So I think it's really important at every level. You don't know who has power. You don't know who has the ear of a senior executive. So it's really important to be mindful of that. Believe it or not, I still have to tell people to be mindful of derogatory language because I actually had somebody come in for an internship who was loaded with a lot of interesting, colorful language during that time. And I didn't think I could pass them on to meet other senior executives because I really didn't know what they were going to get. It's too bad because it was very creative and that was in advertising. I also say try not to anticipate and try not to interrupt. I've had some senior people who come in for an interview and they're trying to tell me what they want to tell me without really listening what I'm asking. And I was asking about very specific things because I knew the team that they were going on. I knew what the team needed. I knew what questions I had to ask. And I got so annoyed that this guy was like older and he thought, I know what you need to know, sister. And I'm like, my God, he's not going to be able to work well with anybody because I can't get a sentence out in terms of how we're having a conversation here. So that was important. Be interesting, people. And what I mean by that is that you can go in and you can be so focused and so specific on what you want to talk about that you don't know what's going on in the world. I mean, we've got a major election coming up. We've got some very interesting and colorful news going on. There's a lot happening in the world. And if you are lucky enough to establish a rapport and actually have a conversation and not just sort of talk about what you want to talk about in terms of who you are, but actually be interesting, be memorable, that's going to be really important. But also have at the ready a really good story about you that might show your leadership, that might show some of your accomplishments, that might illustrate a really good point about what you've done. Like if you guys have been in a sorority and you raised a certain amount of money for a community group, or you had a fundraiser and you brought the population of people together and it was really successful and you got some news coverage out of that, a lot of goodwill. Those are really good stories. It shows leadership. It shows a quantifiable accomplishment that you can talk about. So I would say have a couple of those at the ready. So if you have an opportunity to tell a really good story and make yourself interesting in this particular way, that's going to help you be memorable when you get in there as well. And I can't tell you, we live in such a virtual world where we're all sort of in our computers most of the day. Sometimes it's so hard to connect to people, making eye contact. And I believe in my coaching practice, I have talked to people who have really lost the art of connecting, reading body language, knowing whether or not, are you still with me? Did I lose you? You know, you're not paying attention to when people are not paying attention to you anymore, because we've just lost this art of communication because so much of our time now is spent via computer. Sometimes we don't even pick up the phone and have a conversation anymore. So you really need to engage in that. And believe it or not, I have to remind people of that all the time. I mean, I had a coaching client come in, and for his hour, he just talked at me and told me all these reasons why he didn't think he was getting a job. And I said at the end, when we had like 5 minutes, can I give you an observation, please? So it's like, can you just shut up for a minute so that maybe I can share some ideas with you about some things you need to consider. So it's really important to be mindful of how you're connecting with people in sort of the FaceTime. And I would say, believe it or not, you really need to build some good relationships with your own competition. Because I can't tell you how many times in an intern situation where I might have heard how other interns go rogue. It's all about them. It's all about promoting themselves. They're not working on the team. They're not living up to what the team needs in order to work on the project together or whatever. And part of what we're looking at when we're looking at talent is how well are you working with people? How well are you picking up the slack? Are you carrying your own weight? Those are things we will assess as we're looking at you as a potential candidate. So building the relationships with your class of interns that you come in with is going to be really important as you move forward. Other things I would say: stop, think, respond, and communicate. Those 4 things are going to serve you really well, because sometimes things happen in the moment. Sometimes we can react in the moment, and it's not always the best thing. Sometimes you just need to stop for a minute, assess the situation, think about what you want to do before you do anything. Respond in a thoughtful way that you think you can live with at the end of the day, and then communicate that. If you had difficulty with a fellow intern or with someone else, get your supervisor in the loop. Make sure they understand what the situation was, how you felt you should handle it, what you did about it. Let people know. It might be something you need to communicate to the HR person when you're working. HR can be your friend. I'm not going to say HR is your friend in every situation. It really depends on what environment you're in and how well HR people work. But I would say, for the most part, their goal is to course correct or to help you do that, so they'll negate the opportunity to keep them in the loop with something that's going on. Some other things to think about. Passion is the most used word in the workforce, and I really encourage you to not use it that much. I think passion is shown through your actions. And when you are feeling good about the work you're doing, when you're excited to get up every day, people see that and they will understand that. I always emphasize, have a sense of urgency. When you've been given an assignment, sometimes people just sort of write down and then go on with their day, and they'll get to it when they get to it. I like people who sort of acknowledge whatever the directive was, and I get a sense of how they're getting ready to prioritize that, and they're going to move with it, because that's the person who's actually going to get more work, more responsibility from what I see going forward. Respect hours. You would think that that's an obvious one. But, you know, we have a very interesting work environment now, particularly in the digital space, where people are sort of allowed to come in and work whenever they want to, and it's a question of getting the work done. I think you have to assess each culture that you go into differently, and some people might require you to work a 9 to 5 or an 8 to 4. When you go into a summer internship season, so to speak, you have summer hours, you've got to navigate through. Whatever it is, I would say just respect that, because technically you're the low person on the totem pole. So you should be the person people are seeing when they come in and when they're leaving, and whatever goes on throughout the day. But you got to figure that out. Ask questions, but just don't put it upon yourself to make that decision arbitrarily on your own. When I say be a sponge, when you're an intern, you have an incredible opportunity to go in there and get what you need to determine, is this the area in your career that you want? I mean, ask questions, be all over the place, because that level of interest and intrigue is going to set you apart from the competition. When you are taking on more than just what's expected of you, when the workload is light and you're asking for more work, when you know there's a meeting that's going on and you want to be in the room, that's being a sponge. That's taking the opportunity for the 8 to 12 weeks that you may be in a situation and really trying to make sure you see what's going on. If you're interested in film editing, are you being invited to go to the edit suite? Can you ask to go in for an edit? If you're working in advertising, can you go on a shoot? Ask to go on a shoot. And then make sure that you appreciate the experience. I can't tell you how many times I've heard from managers that say, hey, I took our internship with us, and they didn't even say thank you. You know, they don't understand how rare that is. If you really enjoyed an opportunity that was given to you, I can't even tell you the value of thank you and how far that goes. I also say, in a very difficult situation, make it work. I used to love that on Project Runway with Tim Gunn, who would say, make it work. I think that should be everybody's mantra. We live, as you guys know, in such a time-pressed situation. If you have the ability to problem solve, if you have the ability to help your manager get one extra thing done or figure out one extra thing, you will ingratiate yourself far beyond. You want to be the intern that when you come and say, I'm going back to school now, or TikTok, is there a job, whatever, they're like, oh my God, they're marching down the HR with you and saying, we got to find them a job. Or you're leaving and they're crying in their beer and they're like, what are we going to do without you? You want to be that person. And I tell you that phrase, make it work, goes a long way. I also say keep track of your work. I think keeping a little log or a notebook or something like that is the most valuable little tool. Somebody told me a long time ago. Whether it's on your phone, although I like the written thing because my phone crashed once and I thought I was going to have a heart attack. But being able to keep track of the work that you've been assigned, where it is, the beginning, middle, and end, where are you on that whole thing, keeping people in the loop, keeping them apprised is going to be key. And then another little tidbit that you might have already seen before, for those of you all who might have had internships already. You might go into a meeting and you'll see executives texting and carrying on. Don't be that person. Really, at this stage of your career, it's really about paying attention, it's really about connecting, it's really about acknowledging what people are saying. And even though you'll see other executives and very bad behavior, I mean, hell, you've probably been out with some of your friends and you can't even hold a conversation because they're texting. And you know how rude that feels to you when you're talking about something that's important. So I think that that's a policy that you should take with you within your career as you're trying to go forward on that. And then the bottom line is own it. If you make a mistake, own it. If you've done the work, own it. Make sure people are aware of what you're putting out there. But particularly on the mistake front, you're going to make a lot of mistakes. It's not the blame game. It's not, somebody else's fault. You just got to own it and figure out how can I correct it? Help me make it better. What could I have done differently? That's also it's a level of maturity at the start of your career that's going to serve you for the rest of your career. And I think it serves you well to practice. Now let me share with you some brief little things that put interns in a bad light. There are going to be times where you're not going to care a lot about some of the information that's going on, and you might sit there and be so disengaged in what's being said, and people will come back and say, I don't know what happened here. When I saw Ben in the meeting, he was so bored. I was like, my God, but it's important. You never know who's looking at you and what's going on, and I hear that a lot. Like I said, don't rest on your laurels waiting for someone to hand you additional work. If you're someplace that you really want to be, if you're enjoying the experience, you get in there and you ask for more. And you keep asking, and you'll get it, and that'll be so important to you moving forward. The prioritizing, can't talk today, your work is really important. Being able to figure that out can be challenging sometimes, particularly in a fast-paced environment. It behooves you to ask questions early on when you're there about how your bosses or whoever you're reporting to prioritize work that they give you. If you feel overwhelmed, sometimes you need to take a step back, take a breath, and ask them, hey, you gave me this, that, and the other to do. Today you gave me this. I'm working on this, and I need a little help in terms of understanding what's a priority for you. Because I'm trying to get it all done for you. I'm trying to make the deadlines. If that is nebulous to you, it's really important to ask those types of questions so that you can get it right and understand how the work flows. That's going to be really important. Try not to be defensive. I always say take the criticism that's ever provided for you and, once again, make it work. Figure it out, ask questions, but try not to explain necessarily why you did what you did if you get some negative criticism. Really try to hear what people are telling you about the work so that you can do the course correction and make it better the next time when you're getting ready to get into the trenches and really do some hard work, or you're responsible for bottom line things and you've got like $100 million budget and you're like, oh crap, I need some help here. It's important also to remember not to necessarily place blame. The bottom line is that we're not all going to have a perfect boss. We're going to have some people who have some really bad behavior that are frustrating, who are megalomaniacs in terms of their ego, who may take credit for work from other people. I just encourage you always to take a high road and to not necessarily say, well, I didn't get it done because this person didn't give me the information until 5:45 and I had to stay till 6:30 and so wasn't here and I couldn't figure that out. It goes back to owning it, then recircling perhaps and having a conversation about the process after the fact so that you can get it right the next time. So it's going to be really important to remember that. It may sound ridiculous to say yes inappropriately. You guys have it down because everybody looks terrific here today. But I just put it out there, and I have some very funny pictures to show you later. And then inappropriate emails and internet usage. I have seen interns that might search the net, sitting at their desk having lunch or something like that. The bottom line is that you really don't know how companies monitor your behavior and what's going on. And I would say stick to your usage on your phone and not on your computer. Because we've had some very funny situations. I mean, when I worked for Saatchi, somebody sent an email when we had bed bugs in the building, and they said, we had a client in here visiting, and then the next day we had bed bugs. And then all of a sudden that became like a social media thing, and we're like, oh shit, be careful, I don't want that to be you guys. So be mindful of how you're using the internet. These were my funny pictures. And believe it or not, in advertising, you see a lot worse than that. So. And we did have a woman who came to work in tutu and her combat boots, so it was really interesting. So here are a couple other things to be mindful of as we move into the mechanics. A lot of times, as a frontline job and in an internship, you're going to be answering a lot of phones. Personally, I hate every minute of that, but it kind of comes with the territory. You're the first line of defense. So it's going to be really important to remember that. Always answering your phone, always being professional, always returning a phone call or getting an answer so that you can return a phone call. And take that into your business life as well. Particularly for those of you all who may be on the sales side of the business, if you move into television or advertising in that regard. These are all really obvious things, but I want to make sure that I say them out loud because it's so key for your survival. And these are the things that come up on a performance review during your internship if there's a problem. So just keep that in mind. I see sometimes all caps. Do we not recognize that all caps is yelling when you send that on an email? Because especially when I get that from an intern, I'm like, really? This is interesting. So I just wanted to say that out loud because it depends. And I always think a little courteous response at the beginning. Dear, hello, good morning, instead of just jumping in on an email and saying this is what I need. If you take a minute to just acknowledge I'm a person and saying, I hope you had a great weekend or something like that, hey, I'm writing you because I need such and such and such, it makes such a difference to who responds to your emails and how quickly you do. Because I personally have a little passive-aggressive thing going when somebody just launches in and asks me for stuff without it not at least saying hello or good morning or something like that. And do you have a question?
Open it up for questions?
Well, sure. Whenever you guys have a question, let me know. I'm trying to get through as much as what I'm trying to tell you so that we can go back and deal with what you need to do. And always practice impeccable grooming, even in a jeans environment. It's so challenging, particularly if you go into digital media, to remind yourself of that. It's very challenging because they can even say, leave your suit at home, it's a casual work environment, and you're like, what does that mean? I mean, I remember having to tell a student that they absolutely needed shoes when they came in because he was wearing flip-flops every day. And we had a client coming in, so just be mindful of that and how training can be. So here are some really key things, and I have a really great tip for you guys. Most of you guys, I understand, are interested in entertainment, advertising, digital media. Each of these entities has trades, magazines that are out there, websites to keep your eye on, and other things that are coming up. That's going to be your key to what your future job lead is, particularly if you're having an internship going on. You're going to hear about new business opportunities. You're going to hear about downsizing going on, so you're going to know what your potential is where you are. Particularly if you're in advertising, a lot of times the story about what pitches and who's pitching what is an opportunity for you to kind of target yourself for what those jobs are. So it's going to be key for you. Also, if you're on LinkedIn, following those companies before some of those jobs get posted on the job posting sites is going to be really key. The bottom line is, when you do good work, that's going to make a difference. Anything you do, anything you are asked to do, always doing good work is going to be really key. And like I said, keeping in touch with HR is going to be key, particularly those of you all who are juniors who might be looking for an internship this summer and have to go back to school. Having a good rapport with the HR team that's brought you in is going to be really key towards your survival when you're looking for work the following year, or if you had a really great internship experience and you want to come back, that's going to be really important. Like I said, realize you have a lot of competition out there, so it's going to be really key to keep things going. And endear yourself to your team. Make sure you get their email addresses. Make sure that you stay in touch. Like if you have any free time, and I was telling Tara this at lunch, if you have a break in your semester, a couple of weeks where you could come, maybe do some volunteer work, ask if there is any project work that you could help them on during that downtime. It also keeps their interest in you if you have the time to come in and do a quick break with them. And just make sure you keep them abreast of anything cool that you're doing at school as well. If you've got something where you got some press on something, or you had a really great project and you have a write-up on it or something that you put on there. If you're blogging, that's really important too. And I would say, if you're blogging, be interesting. If you're blogging and you're linking into LinkedIn, that's going to be key. I like LinkedIn as one of the best job sites out there, because even though they'll ask you to put in an application, a lot of times they might ask you if you have a website, if you have a blog location, they'll ask you for your LinkedIn address. And what they're looking for when they look at your blogging is really, how do you think and how do you communicate an idea? So being interesting in that point of view, no more than about 800 words on your blog, and if you haven't been blogging before, it's going to be key. But that's going to be really important. It's a part of your marketing, and that's what we're looking for when we go onto your sites and look at that communication. And keep up with your trades when you're back at school. It's not a bad idea if your school library does not have these trades for you to even subscribe to these trades, because if you're really interested, this is sort of your first line of defense in terms of what's going on out there. And like I said, do your homework, and particularly if you guys are going to any career fairs, look at who's going to be there, go to their websites ahead of time so you can absolutely target what those job opportunities are. You can hit those desks, you can hit those recruiters, and you go and you say, hi, I'm Sophia. I'm here because I have an interest in this particular area. I saw you have this job posting available. Boom, be able to walk in there and tell people specifically. They're going to be looking at a lot of people, and the more people that you are engaging with and telling them what you're interested in, that's going to be really key. Erica?
With the internship, is it good to only make connections within the department, or do we need to like branch out into like finance, the tech side, the operations, like the product development? Do we need to make connections in each department, or just the department that you're in?
I think the department that you're working in is your key contact because you're going to be working with them most often. But I would say if you build a rapport with somebody in a different department and there's the opportunity to keep in touch with them, take advantage of that. You want as many people on your roster so that when you're really ready to hit the road, you've got everything that you need to do that. Okay. Yeah?
Just a question with extending your internship. Like, how would you suggest going about that? Like, if you're going towards the end of the semester and you're really looking into, I would like to stay for another semester, like, how would you do that?
I would go to HR to see what the art of the possibility is. It might be a budget issue. And it's a delicate line between an internship and an entry-level position. And as you've heard recently, a lot of companies have gotten into trouble with that. They need to make sure they're providing a learning experience for you. And technically, the work that you provide should not provide to their bottom line. If it does, they should be paying you like an entry-level employee. So it gets a little tricky when you extend an internship. But sometimes companies extend an internship because let's say we're at the end of summer, it's August, you're a senior, you graduated, all the other students are going back. We love you, but we don't have a budget. So we may say, let's extend your internship to the end of the year, this budget year. We'll give you a bump and raise, or maybe you're making $12 an hour, we'll give you $15 an hour until we get to the end of the year. And then I can hire you in first quarter because I'll have a brand new budget and I'll be able to do that. That might be something they can negotiate with you. But if you're interested in extending an internship, I would definitely start with HR because they will tell you the part of the budget.
Okay. What if it's not paid, if it's for school credit, and you're able to have another semester where you're still using school credit? Like, if it's not a budget issue?
If it's not a budget issue, it's still a little tricky. You kind of have to start with your school to make sure that you can extend that and take it into the credit. And then you still need to go back to HR to see what the art of the possible is. Because like I said, they walk a thin line, and they also need to make sure they can provide the work within the parameters of what the provisions are for you to get the credit. So it's still sort of somebody crunching some numbers and doing, that possible. Right? Yeah?
What would be the advice you would give to the international student that would want to stay here?
A longer stay, are you talking from?
Yeah, because I'm graduating in May, and I just started up in New York, and I'm trying to get out there, so I have to find an OPT, but basically the program is that they give you the OPT, but then they don't keep you, because then there's a bunch of paperwork that's very hard to go through, so.
Now, are you a foreign student?
Yeah.
Okay. It does get tricky to extend foreign students beyond a certain period of time. If I remember New York law, you have a year that you can continue working under the provisions of your visa that allows you to work as a student. It gets tricky for an American company to take that on for a foreign student, because then the justification is, why do we have to take care of the foreign student when we have American students who can function? And it gets extremely tricky for foreign students who are looking for a full-time entry-level position, because we have to justify why an American cannot do the function of that job. I don't have an answer for you because it's a difficult debate. Some companies who are multinational find a way to make that work, but it's very tricky and it's really hard to prove. So I remember when we worked at Saatchi, one of the things that we did is that we actually ended up having the student go back to their home country, but went back to an agency in the home country that allowed her time to work there for a year before she could come back to the United States. That's how we function, and it works better when you have a company that has a global footprint in that regard, but it's very, very tricky. So unfortunately, I don't have a really big answer for you for that. Any other questions yet? Okay, so I'm going to wrap up very quickly with what I say are my 6 tips for success. I like to keep things very short and succinct. I like being on time. I try to practice that as a business leader when I'm having meetings. I'm very respectful of time. There's always one more thing you could have been doing instead of me being late when I'm asking you to come to my meeting. I think you should practice that mindfully, regardless of whomever you're meeting with, who might have a reputation for being late. Be prepared. I mean, in any situation where you just don't know what's going to go on, just bring your A game when you walk in there. Be engaged. I can't tell you how important it is to be able to look at people and give people face time. Particularly in a client-driven business when you are trying to either convince somebody that you want to represent them or that you can get the job done. That connection is so valuable. It makes an impression. So I like that one. I like be curious. I like it when people ask questions, when people want to see what's on the other side of the fence. I also think that's a way of demonstrating your own personal passion. There are times where you just need to be silent. Sometimes just being able to walk in and read the room. Sometimes there may be something going on you don't know anything about, particularly if you're at a junior level. There might be stuff going on with your boss, you don't know what's going on. Those moments when you walk into a room and engage in that silence is going to be so important. So I really encourage you to take advantage of that. And then the bottom line is I really want you to be true to yourself. As you look at these opportunities to go into an internship and to taste whether or not this is the career you want, doing what you want, I really encourage you to search your soul to see if this is a good fit. And I say your soul and not your head, because you're going to have parental impacts, guardian impact, you're going to have peer impact, you're going to have people talking in your head, you're going to have people you're going to be talking to. It can be confusing, you can be competitive with your peers, you can feel like I need to keep up with so-and-so because they're doing this over here, and you really need to listen to what's true to you. How do I work? I like working independently. I want to be in a place where I need to collaborate with people. I want to be someplace that's small. I don't want to be someplace where there are like 5 gazillion people out there. So you really need to think about those things as you prepare for your overall job search. And that's it. So good luck, everybody. I wanted to leave you with one tip that you want to write this down. How many people are familiar with PayScale? Have you heard of this website? Payscale.com. Write that down, because as you start your job search, you might plug in sort of the job spec, and it'll give you a printout of what the job is worth. And coming out of school, it'll also tell you sort of student starting salaries. So you can kind of figure out when you're going into a situation, if you're negotiating salaries, if you want to know what the job is worth, that's a great site. You have to join eventually, but they give you a couple of rounds for free. And I tell you, I recommend that to some of my coaching clients, and it has been an invaluable tool to their negotiations. So on that note, good luck, good job hunting, and remember most of the job postings will start to come out end of November. Hit the ground running, the competition is high, and good luck.